Bismillah walhamdulillah wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to my channel. This is your brother Hamza. After a long period and effort trying to put time to bring you unique contents, today I have a surprise for you, bringing you stories and journeys from Huffaz of Quran. Individuals who spent a lot of time to memorize the Quran so they can serve the Ummah and to be said to them in the day of judgment, as it was narrated by Abdullah ibn Amr ibn al-As that the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, يقال للقارئ القرآن اقرأ وارتقي ورتل كما كنت ترتل في الدنيا فإن منزلتك عند آخر آية تقرأها. It will be said to the companion of the Quran, recite and rise in status, recite as you used to recite in the world, for your status will be at the last verse that you will recite. Without further ado, let's take a trip to the life of our brother Mikail Siddique.
Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala. My name is Mikail Siddique. I am 24 years old, born and raised in Jacksonville, Florida, to a family, a father from West Africa and a mother from the Caribbeans. My current occupation right now is serving as a Quran teacher in my community, helping out as a youth director in many different masajid, and a full-time student studying ulum al-Quran, the sciences of Quran, specializing in tafsir. I have many hobbies. My favorite hobby of all is riding and training and taking care of horses. After that would be soccer, and after that would be martial arts. I used to be a very big bookworm. I still am, I just don't have as much time as I used to do leisure reading. I do a lot of reading for school. As for being able to read fictional books, I don't have much time. So my journey with Quran began when I was 5 years old. I am one of 7 siblings and one of the most pushed or sought after from my father's side in regards to memorizing Al-Quran. So my journey began when I was 5 years old, and it started with simply learning to read Qa'idah. And around the age of 6, I was able to read Qa'idah, and I started basic memorization with Juz Amma. And for the next 2 to 3 years, my motivation was both from my father and my grandmother's side. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala rest her soul and bless her with Jannah. And after she passed away, the motivation continued from my dad's side, but the fact that she was always such a big supporter and pushed me to memorize Quran in my life, and her having passed away before seeing me finish it, was a big factor in pushing me to later on become serious. I did not truly become serious about memorizing Quran until I was around 14 years old, turning 15. And alhamdulillah, finishing high school early helped me in that journey. I was homeschooled during those years, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allowed me, through my father's decision, to leave home and initially to go to a school in Detroit to complete my Quran. Returning home, I stayed home for less than a month, and I was sent to a teacher in Tampa, Florida. And I lived with that teacher for 3 years. And initially it was one teacher, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blessed me to be in the presence of 2 teachers, both of them from Jordan, one a graduate of Yarmouk University and another a graduate of Medina University, and both specialists in Quran. And alhamdulillah, those 3 years are probably the most important 3 years of my life, and they are the foundational years to my whole journey. My father entrusted me with these 2 shuyukh, and I lived with them and interacted with them and learned from them every single day. Initially, I was there to strengthen my hifz and to take sanad, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blessed me with not only going there to strengthen my hifz and to begin the journey of my sanad, but also being able to learn the Arabic language. It's a funny story that I was placed with one of the teachers from Jordan in order to teach him English, but he ended up teaching me Arabic, and till this day he's very weak in English. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blessed me in that way, and he also blessed me in the way of giving me a teacher who took me not only as his student, but as his son and his best friend and his brother, and a person who he looked after more than he looked after himself. And alhamdulillah, Allah blessed me to have him in my life from that time until this very day. Upon finishing in Tampa, I returned home, and initially I was supposed to move from Florida to Texas with that same sheikh who I'm mentioning now, Sheikh Ra'ad al-Rusan. And my father made the decision that I would take a break for a month from studies and then I would travel to Egypt. Mind you that this is a country that I did not know anything about. I had never visited and I was not very sure that I wanted to go. And initially it was a very hard choice, but my father kept to his word and sent me to Egypt after a month of me being home. And subhanallah, the first 6 months were very difficult. I struggled with the change in climate, the change in environment, the change in language, the change in culture, the change in people. And then being put in an environment where I could only study in the Arabic language and communicate and be spoken to in the Arabic language. But alhamdulillah, after 6 months, I was able to adapt and studies became a lot easier. And this is when I fell in love with being able to study Islam and being able to study Quran and being able to learn Arabic in order to allow myself to understand what I have memorized. So alhamdulillah, after 6 months, I enrolled in an intensive Arabic program, which I completed in 2 years. And upon completing this program, I was probably the happiest that I've ever been in my life, simply because I could finally sit and read Surah Al-Fatiha and understand every single ayah as I was reading. Because initially, when I first memorized, I memorized, as majority of the people here in the United States do, upon talqeen, which is a teacher reciting to you and reciting back, and you going and studying and sitting with yourself and memorizing with no understanding of the context of what's being said by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so being able to understand changed my outlook on why I was studying and what I was studying. It brought beauty to it and it caused me to want it more than I ever had. It was always something, in all honesty, at a younger age. We're speaking about when I was 18, when I ended up, or 19, I'm sorry, when I ended up moving to Egypt. And during this time is probably the first time I felt mature enough to admit that now I feel that I'm truly studying. The journey of memorizing Quran was just the tip of the iceberg, and now I had gotten to something much deeper and something much more important and valuable. Upon finishing that 2-year program, I decided to enroll into another program which was for Ulum al-Quran, and this is what pushed me to take the decision of studying Ulum al-Quran in university. And alhamdulillah, I was able to start the study of qira'at, and I completed my sughra, which is the 7 smaller qira'at, and I'm currently working on completing my kubra. And alhamdulillah, after many months of struggle and striving and attempting to find a way to get into Jamiat al-Azhar, with the help of many of my teachers and many of my colleagues, I was able to test, and alhamdulillah, I just recently began my journey in the University of Jamiat al-Azhar. Being that I come from a very large connected family, the first and biggest challenge for me, as I assume is with many people who take the decision or who make the decision to leave home to study, would be not being able to see your family on a daily basis and sometimes not communicating with them on a daily basis. When I was in boarding school in Detroit, I would have calls with them once a week on the weekends, and sometimes something would pop up, I would be busy and I wouldn't be able to communicate with them. When I was in Tampa, the communication was a lot better because I was closer to them. But when I went to Egypt, I really felt the distance, because you're talking about 6 to 7 hour time difference. Many of the times I'm awake, they're asleep. When they're asleep, I'm awake. And even when there was time to communicate, I was busy with studies or they were busy with work or school. So there was that gap of communication and being connected to my family. And that actually had a very large toll on me, and for some time distracted me from studies. Until I visited one summer, and I remember seeing everything as I left it. And I reached a point where I understood that the world, no matter how much you're attached to it, will always move on without you. And so if you allow yourself to be anchored to emotions and to people and to feelings, yes, it's natural as a human being, but when you anchor yourself to these things, it takes you away from possibility of greater things. Meaning, me being a student of Quran, there's nothing greater, there's no bigger blessing than being a student of the words Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has sent down. And being distracted by things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed me with and will continue to bless me with because of my sacrifice doesn't make sense. And it's a very hard decision to make, but once you let go of those connections, And you do so in a healthy manner, of course. You make sure that you maintain communication with your family and the love is still there, but you do not let that distance distract you to the point where it takes you away from your mission. And alhamdulillah, upon learning that, studies became much easier. Another hardship was getting used to dealing with different people from different cultures. It's one thing when you go somewhere and you're in a boarding school and you're sitting in one building or in one specific area for large amounts of time. But when you go somewhere like Egypt and you're there alone, you're there as an independent young man or woman, you are exposed to many things. And because of that, you have to learn to sift the good from the bad and what's beneficial for you from what's not beneficial for you, and to organize yourself and organize your time. And all of these things serve as tests and distractions for those who are students of knowledge. And it's very important that we are able to stay on track and to focus on what is the bigger goal. So I would say those were two of my biggest difficulties. Difficulty memorizing Quran itself, alhamdulillah, I did not find hardship with memorizing Quran itself. I found hardship with managing time for things like memorizing, meaning putting a specific time in a day to memorize. I'm a very sporadic person. I do things spontaneously. So in the beginning, I would memorize in the morning, and then another day I would memorize in the evening, another day I would memorize late at night. And that caused me to have certain areas or places in Quran that were less strong than others due to the fact that I was not on a specific schedule. And everybody knows when you're a student of Quran, your time management and your scheduling is the most important thing. And having a set time for muraja, revision, and having a set time for hifz, memorization, is a very important aspect of being a student of Quran. And so that is probably the biggest thing that I struggled with in the beginning and through the middle of my journey, which was managing of my time to properly or adequately review and memorize my Quran. There are many times where I reached roadblocks, and that simply, I believe, was a psychological thing, being I would reach a set of ayat or a set of pages, and just looking at them, I feel that, you know what, these are hard. There's long words. There's a lot of weird, quote-unquote, tajweed rules. It's very hard for me to understand even with reading the translation. And I would find that it would take me, say for example, if I normally memorize a page in an hour, I would end up memorizing these kind of pages where I'm feeling they're difficult in days. And this sometimes discouraged me. But alhamdulillah, over time I was able to overcome this. Alhamdulillah, I finished Quran at the age of 16. And I took my first sanad at the age of 19. And that is the current sanad that I hold. And the sanad that I'm working on currently is a sanad that is Majmu' al-Qira'at. So it's a combination of the qira'at that I have read on my shaykh. And upon completion of reading these qira'at to him, I will take an ijazah that lists all of the qira'at that I have read to him and him giving me ijazah or sanad in them. I wouldn't say I have any tricks in regards to memorizing Quran, but there is a very beautiful formula that I took from the Shaykh Ra'ad, where he would make us, or his students who are memorizing, read the ayah that he's going to memorize 20 times. Open the mushaf, look at the ayah you want to read, and read it 20 times. And then after that initial 20 times, that's your quote-unquote warm-up. Now you're going to focus and you're going to read it 7 times with the intention of imprinting a picture of it in your mind. And then you will close the mushaf and you'll read it 14 times from memory. And then you'll open the mushaf and you'll read it again 5 times. And you go every ayah like this with the goal of imprinting a picture of the ayah or ayat in your mind. Another beautiful thing that he would instruct his students to do is when you close the mushaf while you're memorizing, if you're memorizing on the right side, you would close your mushaf and fold it and hold it on the right side so that you're envisioning and connecting that, you know what, this page is on the right side. And when you move to the left side, you hold and flip the Quran on the left side, and the same intention, the same action, you are envisioning and understanding that, okay, the page that I'm reading right now is on the left side, the first ayah of the page is this, and the last ayah of the page is this, in order to anchor or to create an anchor of the pages and ayats that you memorize in your head. My favorite ayah in Quran would be the ayah from Surah Fatir, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asks us, Ya ayyuhan nasu dhkuru, or tells us, يا أيها الناس اذكروا نعمة الله عليكم هل من خالق غير الله يرزقكم من السماء والأرض لا إله إلا هو فأنا تؤفكون. And subhanallah, when I was memorizing this ayah, I was sitting in my bedroom and it was about 2 a.m. and my dad had just called me and told me a story of an imam in Ghana, in our home country, who was actually a student of Medina University and who had graduated. And upon returning to Ghana, he got into a very bad car accident. And in this car accident, he lost his legs and he lost the ability to move majority of the limbs in his body, and his eyesight was also damaged. And upon hearing this and going and sitting and reading the translation of this ayah and realizing how much Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala truly has blessed me, and how in this ayah he's reminding us, Ya ayyuhan nasu dhkuru ni'matallahi alaykum. O mankind, remember all of the bounties that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has bestowed upon you. هل من خالق غير الله يرزقكم من السماء والأرض? Is there a creator besides Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who has the possibility or who has the ability to give you rizq, sustenance, from both as-samawat wal-ard, from both the heavens and the earth? La ilaha illa hu. There is no other deity to be worshipped except Him. And subhanAllah, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allowed me to memorize or to start memorizing this ayah, right after that phone call with my dad, to bring gratefulness to Him into my heart. And so that, from that moment, has been my favorite ayah in the Quran. My advice to the youth, breaking into two parts, and the first part being the most important, and that is their journey with Quran, is that even though majority of people, if not all people, have the desire to be a hafiz of Quran, it is not destined for everybody to be a hafiz. And this is just a reality that we have to accept. We wish that every single person on this earth could end up being a hafiz of Quran, but we know that in reality it won't happen. And so we should allow ourselves to make realistic goals. That if I have reached a point in my life where I find it difficult, as many people do, to memorize the whole Quran, what is my obligation? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not say one place in Quran, أَفَلَا يَحْفَظُونَ الْقُرْآنَ. He asks us, أَفَلَا يَتَدَبَّرُونَ الْقُرْآنَ. And this explains to us and allows us to understand what is the true importance and what is the true kind of relationship that we should have with Quran. And that is that it is our map in this journey of life. And by doing tadabbur, we will take directions for every single place that we need to go. And so for the youth, my advice is to make the most strong and beautiful connection and relationship with Quran that you can. And many of you will ask, how do I do that? By simply reading, understanding, and sitting with the people of knowledge, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has told us, فَاسْأَلُوا أَهْلَ الذِّكْرِ إِن كُنْتُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. Go and sit and ask the people of knowledge regarding things that you do not understand. And there's not a single person of us on this earth, be he hafiz or not, who can say that they understand everything that they read in Quran. And so it is our responsibility to sit and read the Quran with ourselves, to sit and read the Quran with shuyukh, and then to sit and contemplate on these ayat. What does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mean? What is He saying to us? How can we extrapolate and take these things that He's saying to us and implement them into our lives? A generic or general advice that I would give to the youth is to stay as connected as possible to their religion. We live in an age where we are swimming in a sea of darkness, and the only light that we hold on to is the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And so because of that, we should try our very best to not sway or to go far from either of these two, and to implement as much of them as we can into our lives. And initially, yes, it will be a hard process. We live in a place, for those of us who live in America, where every single day Islam is being put down, and the morals and ethics and beliefs that we have are looked at as weird. But in the end of the day, we know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us the rules that He has given us. And the Prophet Muhammad has left us with the sunnah that he left us, simply and only to save us. And so I leave you with these two advices. I would say that more than a what, it's who pushed me to be where I am today. And it's four individuals. The first individual would be my father. From the time that I was a child until this day, his vision has been for me to be a person of Islam, a person of Quran, a da'i, simply for the sake of salvating myself and inshallah being able to save my family, and also being able to do good and give back to the community. The second person would be my grandmother. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have mercy on her and grant her Jannatul Firdaus al-A'la. She was a very big part as to why I memorized Quran and why I continue to be on the path that I am today. I remember before passing away, she asked two things of me, and that was number one, to never forget my identity as a person, as a Muslim, and number two, to never leave the journey of Quran. And alhamdulillah, I have been able to uphold those two requests from her. The third person, and subhanAllah, he should be the first person, would be Sheikh Ra'ad al-Rusan, the teacher who I met and studied under and still study under, initially from Tampa. And subhanAllah, he has been the biggest motivator for me since I met him. And that has been, subhanAllah, I met him when I turned 17. So alhamdulillah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put him on my life, and he allowed him to be the steering wheel for my journey in this life of being a student of knowledge. Every single step of the way of my studies, of my journey throughout life since I have met him, he has been present as an advisor, as a friend, as a motivator, and as a person sometimes to give me a reality check when I need it. And the last person would be my mother, alhamdulillah, just with her kindness and with her moral support. There are many times where I felt very sad, or I felt unaccomplished, or I felt that I'm not doing enough. And with her kind words, alhamdulillah, and her motivation, I was able to remain on the track that I am today.
We ask Allah to protect you and give you thabat on this journey. Allah said in the Quran in Surah Fatir, ثم أورثنا الكتاب الذين اصطفينا من عبادنا فمنهم ظالم لنفسه ومنهم مقتصد ومنهم سابق بالخيرات بإذن الله ذلك هو الفضل الكبير. Then we granted the book to those who we have chosen from our servants. Some of them wrong themselves, some follow a middle course, and some are foremost in good deeds by Allah's will. Indeed, that is the greatest bounty. I ask Allah to make us among those who are foremost in doing good deeds. Finally, if you've reached to this part, it shows that you have enjoyed this video. And if you did, please comment below and share your thoughts. Hit the like button and subscribe to my channel to support the productions of these projects. Turn on the notification to get notified on the upcoming projects that I'm working on. Until next time, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.